record. You guys might get a little notification.
Say okay.
We did.
And I'm going to go ahead and kick it off because it's 5 minutes after, and I don't want to hold anybody up, make this take longer than it needs to. But basically, James is going to go through and he's got a PowerPoint presentation, and then we might look at on the map at some areas. But let's talk real quick first about our plan for who's doing what on these boats. I've been talking to William and Sabrina recently, and they have identified an available boat through a charter service that Sabrina's familiar with, I think. Is that correct?
Yeah, she's definitely the connection. Her daughter's soccer game ran late, so she's heading back, so she'll probably join us in a little bit, but she has the connect to the boat.
And we can get into the details of that, but then there's two other options. Two people that I work with that are boaters and fishermen and I've asked them if they would be interested in doing it, and both of them said yes, for about 4 to 6 hours. I know they wouldn't be down for more than that because they're not birders per se, and have families and stuff to go back to. So
now is that two people in one boat or two boats?
Two boats. William, I guess the charter boat would cost money, so we got to talk about how we would cover that.
I'm perfectly open to maybe casting that aside if we can work with the two people that you have. And then maybe do just the gas money, I think you mentioned.
Yeah, we would offer them gas money. Hopefully they could either take it, or if they were feeling generous, maybe say donate it to the Audubon Society. But who knows? We'll work that out later. But they both looked at it pretty hard, and I've asked them, is there any chance you're not going to be able to do it at the last minute or something? They're like, no, I'm going to be around that weekend. So I'll double check with them tomorrow and confirm, or by the end of this week or so, and make sure. But they've already both told me they could do it. James, you said you've been in contact with somebody else that could do the north end.
Yeah, I talked to Patty Haas from Huguenot, and she indicated she's got connection with people who had previously done marsh sparrow surveys in the habitat around Clapboard Creek and Nassau Sound and some of those areas. And those are some of the prime areas where previously we've gotten large numbers of seaside salt marsh and Nelson sparrows. So that's promising. And I don't think that they have the capacity to do much more than that area, and especially don't want to push them, especially if they know the area well.
Yeah.
But the other things that we have to keep in mind in terms of the boats that we have are the types of boats and the experience of the captains, because the last thing we want to do is have inexperienced people trying to go offshore through the jetties. And if you've ever done it in a small boat, it can be pretty harrowing. And I'm not proud to say, but I have ended up in the water on a CBC.
Oh, wow.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and it's not pleasant. Actually, I've done that twice. Once in February down in St. Augustine doing a shorebird count. That was, yeah. So that the experience of the captain would be, and the size of the boat, would be the deciding factor as to what part of the count circle that person or that boat would cover. And because smaller boats can do the river, but I would feel more comfortable if, a boat that was equipped with a smart, experienced captain and life preservers and all that kind of stuff for the offshore.
I know the two boats people that I work with, boats are, one of them's a Pathfinder flats boat, 20 foot like flats. It's more of a bay. What does he call it? A bay boat?
A-liner?
Not a bay liner. It's for like it has a shallow draft, but it also has it's set up so that it can run across the bay or open water with less chop, I guess, or less. It can handle a little bit of chop basically. And the other one's another small boat, but they're both very experienced captains. One's an actual licensed captain who drives boats sometimes for work, and then the other one is a very experienced fisherman and lived in this area most of his life and
Okay, good.
been around boats a lot. So I think they're both very experienced captains as far as whether they can handle rougher seas as they get out towards the inlet. That's really going to be a call that's up to them for what they think would be safe, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think they're the ones who need to be making big inputs into that decision. I think, William, you may have had something to say. You sort of wrote.
Oh, I was gonna ask what generally your boat size was, because I think ours is a 24-foot boat, and I've experienced kind of 4 to 6 foot waves before in a 20-inch off of Tampa and then
Yeah.
Sarasota, and it's not very fun, especially when we
Well,
saw a shrimp boat and tried to chase it on against the current, and the captain, you know, was he made the final call. He said it was fine to go with, but then it did slightly damage his boat, and that's when we called it off. And the shrimp boat had absolutely nothing, so it was kind of a bad moment.
Yeah. Well, the good thing for this count circle, and William, you and I have emailed about this before, is that the count circle doesn't extend very far past the jetties, maybe double the length of the jetties out. So I mean, if you see a shrimp boat offshore, it's wiser just to wait till it comes into towards the
Exactly.
jetties and just let it come to you. I'll share, and I think I've shared this before, but one of the great things about being on a boat for a Christmas bird count is one year we went out the jetties and north, and we were tooling around, and we came across this large school of fish. So we shut off the engine and sat there while dozens and dozens of gannets were just raining down, one just constantly, one right after another for like 10 minutes. It seemed like maybe it was longer, maybe it was shorter. I don't know, but it was like very zen to have these birds just dropping 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet from the boat. It was fantastic. So you may, and then in St. Augustine once on the way out of the inlet, we had first time for the count, long-tailed duck, and on the way back in the afternoon, we had a first of count common eider.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, we'll talk a little bit more about.
Yeah, I wrote a list on at least targets that we would go for.
Good. Yeah, it'd be fun to see.
Yeah, so we still have to figure out who's exactly going on what boat or where the boats, are going.
Right. And we also don't want to peel off too many people from the land, because I know that I talked to Deb Hill, and she's concerned that she may have a need to have some extra people, in her area. So I want to make sure we don't peel off too many people onto boats. If we have, 2-3 people on a boat, or two experienced people plus a driver, may be enough, because I haven't ever been on a CBC with more than that, or a party in a boat with more than that. It can work, and I'm not going to tell people what they can or can't do, but I just want to be cognizant of not peeling off too many people from our land parties.
Yeah. Yeah, I still need to talk to my territory. We kind of split it up. But I may stay on the land depending on who all wants to be on boats. William, who have you talked to that was interested in being on a boat?
Yeah, I've put a good amount of feelers, and I'd say I'd have not that I would necessarily achieve this, but have about 5 to 6 people that at least said that they would be interested. And then one of them's Tim. I really want Tim on a boat. He's also very extremely experienced with offshore. Me, him, and Jeff are the main people that I see that go offshore
That's
and take
Jeff
these
Graham, you mean?
charters. Yeah.
Okay, because he's
Yeah. um, and so, but Jeff can't. I offered to Jeff, but he's out of town. But Tim said, and Tim probably goes on the pelagic the most. I think he's had the most pelagic trips, hopping on the boat. I don't know if you call it pelagic, but this year for sure. So at least me and Tim, I think, would be beneficial. But I have about 4 others that are at least interested, and two of them would be fine just going to fill in for other people as well, or filling in groups.
Okay, that sounds good. Sounds like we have enough people for the boats, and let's get into James's presentation.
okay. Yeah, I'm going to go through it kind of quickly because we've sort of talked about some of it already. So let me. Oops, I started at the bottom, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So just a couple of things. I just want to set the stage here because what's critical to me is that we have a good experience and everybody enjoys doing the boat thing, because the goal is to have it be an annual feature of this CBC. So, I've spent a lot of years doing the boat party in Duval and St. Johns counties. So, I can certainly talk to it from that experience, and I'm glad some of you also have the same. So, in terms of the CBC protocol, one of the things that's important and what gets emphasized to me by the regional editors for the state are that the expansive tidal marshes in our count circle is, it might be the biggest in the state. We haven't quantified it, but just looking at the count circles on the Audubon map, sure looks like we've got among the largest habitat of tidal marsh, salt marsh around. The topographic limitations of only birding by land are, as you all know, as well as I do, that the elevations are low on the shorelines. And, if you don't have a scope, then you're not going to be as effective getting some of those further out birds. A lot of this acreage, and we'll see it when we look at the maps, and you guys are familiar with the area that I'm talking about. There's so much area that can't be accessed by foot, by vehicle, that really the only way to survey it is to cover it by boat. And of course the potential for scarce species is enhanced by accessing areas that people don't usually go in much. So that's kind of, and again, covering the count circle is critical. And if a large part of your count circle can't be covered because you can't get there by foot or car, then you're not doing as effective a job as is possible. So the agenda that we'll talk about today real quick is the coverage strategy, coordination with the section leaders, islands, cameras, tides, talk a little bit about those topics, how to e-bird in a boat, your stationary checklists, traveling checklists, and habitats we'll talk about briefly. And finally, we'll take a look at the maps and how to best divide the area. Now, we've talked a little bit about that, but we'll sort of wrap it up with that topic. And again, I'm going through quickly here, so just because I want to get to the logistics and that sort of stuff, but coverage strategy. So the important thing about boat parties is that we figure out whether they're going to be part of a section, depending on where it is decided that they would go. or if they're a separate party, or sorry, a separate section. Now, Pete, when you did the maps back in 20, whatever year it was, you had a separate boat area which encompassed north and south of the jetty, a little off from the jetty, and sort of toward the mouth of the river, but not to impinge on Mayport or Huguenot. And and that's a fair. I mean, that's a great starting point. If we can certainly talk about that. But whether, and of course, that's going to tie into the trip reports. And so we don't have to decide that now or talk much in detail now. But if a boat party is only going to be covering an area around one particular point, for example, the people covering Nassau and Clapboard Creek would probably join with Laura's group at the Talbot Islands. Just makes sense logistically that would be the case. But the other point that's really, really critical is that if you're in a boat and you're off of of somebody else's section, you want to make sure that you note, the time that you're there, and you want to look to see, or are they standing there? Like, for example, if you're offshore of Huguenot and there's a big group of people with scopes at the jetties, well, you don't want to count the same birds. On the other hand, I remember being at a CBC where we got a female harlequin duck out at the end of the jetty that they couldn't see from the shore. And so, but you need to coordinate and communicate with the section leader who's you're adjacent to their section, so that you don't double count. Another example is Fort Caroline area is so much private property you can't access the edge of the river. So a boat party is great because they can cruise along off, and count all the shorebirds on the docks that people can't see because it's private property. If it's these long these long properties that go from Fort Caroline Road out to the river that are, 100 feet wide, 200 feet wide, and, quarter mile long, you can't bird the shore there. Anyway, so those are the things that when we know a little bit more about who's going to cover where, we're going to have those discussions about, okay, what areas do you need to cover? What areas can we see where we don't really need somebody, where the river's not as wide, for example? So those are the conversations that the people in the boats need to be having with the people who are in those sections. The next.
James?
Yes, please.
The map, I guess we need to kind of figure out when we're gonna get all that gelled, but the map that you were talking about, while you're talking, I'm gonna try to look for it and pull it up.
Okay, well, I have it in the deck.
Okay, good.
I had it hidden. I can unhide it and show it when we get back to the end. But yeah, well, that's why one of the things I want to do toward the end is to really, go from the jetties and work all the way back toward Goat Island, so we can really take a look at what areas are good and what areas aren't. And that's why I was hoping more of the section leaders would be here, because they know on the ground, the best places to go, or which areas aren't going to be great. So Bartram quarantine. Every year that I did the Jacksonville count on the river, we stopped at Quarantine Island, walked on to those big impoundments, and that's where we would get long-billed dowitchers and shorebirds and ducks and all kinds of stuff inside those impoundments. We even saw bobcat walking around there. So it's a really cool place. And so I'm hoping that the flat bottom boat was what came when you were talking about the flat bottom boat. That's kind of one of the things that I was thinking of, is that, being able to pop onto Quarantine with a flat boat is a lot easier than a 24-foot boat with a V bow. So, just a consideration, but that's something that, would mean that the person could drop off the birders. And if they're not a birder, they can cruise around, and do something else and just organize a time to be back to pick up the birders on Quarantine. But walking Quarantine, and also there's a park at the end of Reed Island, which is around Mill Cove. You know,
I've been out there.
yeah, we used to call it Fulton Road. We'd go out there, but now it's all fully developed. But I'm pretty sure that Kelly has access to those developments. So we'll have to see that. But there's nobody who can cover Mill Cove except in a boat, really, because again, that's all private property in there. And Mill
Yeah.
Cove is pretty shallow, so a flat boat going into Mill Cove is probably an optimal thing. And if you're wondering why I'm looking to my right, that's where my notes are. In case you're wondering what the hell is this guy looking at?
Your notes are actually up on the screen, James.
Oh, you can see them too?
Yeah.
I thought you could only see the actual slide itself. I hope I don't have any expletives written in there.
You must have it in notes mode instead of slideshow or something.
Okay, well, that's weird. Anyway, okay, well, I don't care. I don't think that I have any expletives in there anyway. So Blunt Island, as I mentioned earlier, and this goes for Mayport as well. If you're in a boat, you got to be careful. Being accosted by people with gunboats is not a pleasant experience. They're usually, they're military professionals, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to get unnerved by a 50 caliber gun, generally pointing in your direction. So be real careful about that and pay attention to what they tell you to do and not do. Sawpit is another island that's just north of the Talbot Islands that used to be able to get to from this bridge, but they've determined that bridge is not safe, and so you can only get there by boat. There was also another thing I want to mention is that there may be some people, we haven't heard anybody talking about kayaks, but some of these salt marshes, if there's anybody that is a birder who does kayaking, that might be another great opportunity for people to get some physical activity if they're a fitness person and help us out as well.
Okay.
And then finally, cameras. And it sort of stands to reason that if you're in a boat, you're more likely to see things like red-throated loon or, I've gotten long-billed curlews, out there in the boat. We're in some of the stretches of undeveloped river edge where you can sort of find some things. And so it's a good thing that each of the boats, if we can, have a person who's got a camera and some camera capabilities. So again, I'm just going to keep rushing through. Feel free to chime in, tell me to shut up. This is the tide chart for the bar pilot's dock at Mayport on the Christmas bird count day. And you'll note here that just before 8 in the morning is low tide, and just after noon, 1-ish, it's high tide. And that's very relevant to where the boats are and what birds you're going to be looking for and all this. And as I said before, this is just one spot. If you're going to be birding in one particular area or another, you should probably look for the tide chart for the nearest station that has the tide for that location, because there can be between the mouth of the river and Goat Island there near Ready Point, there can be an hour plus of tide difference. And again, I'm not great at knowing that stuff, but the people who create these charts are. So try to find a chart nearest to where the boat's going to be, and know where you're going to launch from. So, someone have something to say? No? Okay. Okay, so low tide's good for loafing birds on the sandbars, of course, but on the you have to also be careful not to get stuck in a, like if you're up in the estuary and the tide runs out, you're going to be dragging your boat across mud and oysters. So you need to really be cognizant of and have a plan. high tide pushes I've got a picture later on where you can see some fun sparrows, but the high tides are where you're going to get the sparrows all sort of condensing into certain spots. And they're always fun to get, but that's where the cameras are also going to come into play because they're incredibly sketchy and they'll all jump up for a minute, then they'll get tired of looking at you or they'll feel exposed and they'll jump back down. So you're not going to have a lot of time to stare at them and pick them out. So photographs are great. When you're sort of in the river, you got to watch out, of course, for toward the mouth of the river, the jetties. You got to watch out for boat traffic. The currents are really strong there. Even if the water looks calm, don't let it fool you. And as I mentioned to William a little earlier, rather than chase the shrimpers offshore, you wait till they come back in. Usually you'll see this later in the day, obviously, but sometimes they go out real early and come in the morning. They may create their routes based on the tides too. I'm not a shrimper, so I don't know. And but if you wait for them to come back, that's when they're going to have their haul. That's where the Jaegers and other things are going to be hanging out, following them, looking for stuff falling off the boat. Keep an eye out for large boat traffic, obviously the cruise ships now and other things. And one other thing I'll mention about the tide schedule, and this may not be the right time to talk about it, but I have mentioned it in previous CBC calls, but I'm going to put the bug in people's ears so that you start thinking about it and about the implications. If one of the things that we need to do is maximize boat access on the Christmas bird count, it has been suggested that what we need to do is pick a CBC date that has tides kind of like this, where there's a good range during the daytime of possibilities to use boats, because there have been many years when the sine wave has been opposite, and it was a waste of time to be out on a boat because you're just not going to get anything. So on the other hand, having having a set date where if I want to know what my holiday plans are going to be 10 years from now, I can just look for the first Saturday after Christmas. That's going to be the Jacksonville count. That is conducive to having people be able to plan participation on that date. That doesn't mean the tides are going to cooperate. You see the point? That's the sort of equation that, and so far the people who have been running the CBC have decided that having a date certain is more beneficial for participation and coverage than the vagaries of tides and what we can or can't get based on that. So I'm not going to talk any more about that, but please be thinking about that. And if you feel strongly that the boat action is so important that it supersedes the planning aspect of it, then yeah, I'd be interested in hearing your case. Okay, so how to e-bird in a boat. There's a couple things that we need to keep in mind. If you're traveling, the eBird protocol, there is a pelagic protocol that this aligns with, but this isn't exactly pelagic because it's not all going to be offshore, but it's still in alignment. They want boat checklists to be limited to an hour, but if you move into a new habitat, you should start a new checklist. That second bullet is the same as when you're on land. So if you're out west and you're in a valley and you're doing your birding, and as you go the trail, you're going up the elevation, you're getting toward the tree line, you start a new checklist because it's different habitat, different birds. The same is true here. And so we'll talk a little bit more about the habitats in just a second, but it's just keep it to an hour, maximum. And in my experience, we never really stayed in any one spot for more than an hour anyway. Except for when we had to anchor to count shorebirds that were all on during high tide, the shorebirds collected on the piers or the people's docks, their boat docks. And there were thousands and thousands of dowitchers and Dunlin and everybody sitting on there. So we anchored and counted. Again, and that's what that would be a stationary count. So again, I'm not going to belabor this too much, but I just want to emphasize that it's slightly different from what you might think on land, but it is important to pay attention to. The next thing is, in terms of the habitats, you can tell me if you've got any other ideas, but generally speaking, it seems to me that in the Jacksonville CBC, if you're in open river, in the middle of the river, where you're going to get balloons and some of the ducks and whatever in the river, that's a different habitat than the ocean and the jetties, obviously. And then if you're close to the edge, those are more the tidal estuaries than open river or ocean, and those are. And so those are the three main habitat areas. Again, let me know if you think of any ones that are different. A lot of the islands, like Bartram Quarantine, have eBird hotspots themselves, so you can just use those. Anyway, I think,
James.
Yeah, please go ahead.
It seemed like they were using that island for dredging as recently as this fall. I guess we just need to be careful that we don't try to go out there while they're working. Of course, they're probably not going to be working on the Saturday after Christmas, but
yeah, I
guess just be cognizant of that.
100%. Yep. All working vessels, whether they're, professional fisher people, cruise ships, cargo, military, dredging activities, whether there are barges or the pipes that go with any equipment. If you go onto quarantine and there's tractors or bulldozers or whatever land equipment, 100% stay away from that stuff. And if people say, hey, you're not supposed to be here, don't argue with them. Now, we've always gone on there and we've seen people on there driving around in their contractor pickup trucks. No one's really ever said anything.
Okay, good.
But, one other thing I'll mention that's not a pleasant thing. I don't know if you all know what the concept of a boneyard is, but on one of the islands on Quarantine, I think below the Dames Point Bridge, is a boneyard. And what I mean by that is Fish and Wildlife will go and collect carcasses and drop them off, and you'll very often see not thousands, but hundreds of vultures, because they're picking the bones of manatees and sea turtles and porpoises and deer and other things. They dump them there so that people don't abscond with the bones of protected species, which we don't want people doing, obviously. But that's where they drop off those carcasses that they pick up out of the waterways and stuff and let the vultures eat them. So you probably don't want to stay close by there anyway, unless you've got extreme nasal congestion. But
might be a good place to pick up some vultures and other raptors, maybe.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's yeah. In fact, if you see vultures there, then you can surmise their purpose. So this is just a picture of from 2022 of some sparrows that were in the Spartina grass, and this is the kind of concentration. This is when they're susceptible to pishing. So if you're cruising along the Spartina during high tide, you don't see anything. If you switch off the engine and you do your pishing, they'll fairly readily come up. They won't stay up, But if you get, Jeff Graham ready with his camera and you pish a little bit, it's a good thing. So,
Or William with his camera.
or William with his camera. Yep. I didn't mean to
You're good.
limit. Yeah. Okay.
And actually, James, let me correct you. That was Black Needle Rush. That's
is
not,
it?
That's not Spartina. See how
Okay.
dark it is?
Yeah.
That's Needle Rush.
Okay.
Just to be technical.
Now okay. Now, is Spartina the genera name though? Did I get at least that part?
Spartina is the grass
Okay.
that goes probably majority of the salt marsh, but the Black Needle Rush also grows in areas as well. They kind of form zones.
Okay, good. Well, maybe you can tell me on the last slide what the plant is beneath the sparrows in that last slide, or the final one. So this is the count circle, and you can see on the west side it sort of breaks Goat Island, which I never really covered that much. Then you can see as you move west, you see Bartram is the large end of that long linear island, and Quarantine is sort of the next one, sort of in the middle, and then you see Dames Point Bridge. And as you go over the Dames Point Bridge, just to the east of that, there's really big pools. I've never really gone to that side, but it'd be interesting to see if there's anything in there. Also, on the south side of that island is pretty shallow, but a flat bottom boat could do that well. And of course, that large area there to the east of Dames Point is Mill Cove. And that's you get a lot of ducks in there, a lot of teal, green-winged teal and stuff. Pelicans hang out in there, American white pelicans and stuff. Anyway, if you continue moving on, there's that white spot there beneath the Count Circle Center and 105, which is Heckscher. That white area is when I was a kid, we used to call it Buck Island. Is it still called Buck Island? It's that Dredgefield Island at the end of Fort Caroline Road.
Yeah, Buck Island.
Yeah.
I've heard it as Buck Island. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
We
it's
get sharks teeth there.
Oh man, me and my buddies used to camp out for a weekend, and we would just set up tripods and box screens and screen for shark's teeth and fossils and all kinds of stuff, and it was great. I mean, I still have a collection of these big old Carcharodon shark teeth from that spot.
I do too.
Yeah, I just love that spot. Got some good memories of childhood memories of camping out there and figuring out what my capacity for gin ingestion was as a boy. So not much, I'll say. And of course, as you go out toward the river, you get Mayport, and of course there's the intercoastal too. So intercoastal is a fun thing to consider covering, although it's not particularly wide, and I think that we should leave it to the sections to really say whether it's particularly important. The people who cover Greenfield, that's residential, and I don't know how much access you can get up and down the Greenfield Peninsula. It's Queens Harbor, I guess is what they call it. I did the archaeology before it became Queens Harbor. It was, and that piece of land is called Greenfield because that's what the plantation was named prior to it being modernly developed. Anyway, if there's enough access on land, then we probably don't need to spend time on a boat in the intercoastal, but that's not for me to decide. And then, of course, you can see how the edge of the Count Circle isn't particularly far off the jetty, but you can see, you can go down toward Atlantic Beach, and you can zoom in on the Audubon website and see exactly where the Count Circle crosses. So if if you're on the land, where you can't go past. And the same is true up into Nassau Sound, where you can see that the bridge that connects the Talbots and Amelia, you can sort of go out on there and see if there's anything out there when you're crossing it in a car, which we do. But having someone in Nassau Sound, that one little island it used to be called Bird Island. I don't know if it still is.
Yeah.
But
Whatever with left of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, we collected Christmas trees, and we would get these flat boats full of Christmas trees, go out to Bird Island with wooden stakes and twine, and strap them down to the ground as erosion control mechanisms.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was back in the 70s, I think.
Trying to keep the island.
Yeah, to prevent
Birding?
erosion. Yep. To
Oh.
build back up for nesting habitat for lease terns, particularly. Now they use Publix.
Yeah. I love scaffolding.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's kind of where the presentation ends. This is the other picture with the salt marsh sparrows and I'm sorry, Nelsons and Seasides. It's sort of dimmed because I want to mention that we will need to follow up with the people who are in the boats so that we know where you're going to be and all this kind of stuff, and to make plans to communicate with the section leaders, and also to watch the weather, because that's certainly critical, and have contingency and safety plan. That is to say, if the seas are too big, they may be fine in the salt the salt marsh area, the estuaries. But if your plan was to go offshore, don't just be safe. Have safety gear and all that kind of good stuff.
Okay.
So anyway, let me just end the screen share and open it up. We've got a little bit more time, and we've got a new participant, Sabrina.
Hey, Sabrina.
So thanks for coming. Thanks for joining and listening to me rant for 30 minutes.
Hey, Pete.
Yeah.
Since we had a small turnout of the section leaders and you said you were videoing this, can we get in touch with them if they missed it and have them rewatch the video so they can see what we covered tonight?
Yeah, I'll post it on YouTube and send out the link that everybody can click on, and I'll send it to everybody that was invited to this meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely want to push it out to them and have them forward it to the people on their teams if as it would be relevant, because not everybody who is a section leader is going to be covering the section that may be adjacent to the river, and that's
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. True.
Yeah, because I can see our area. Like I said, we can't do a boat at Mayport. I don't know where you would do it at Hannah Park. I mean, I don't see much we could do there with Hannah and Atlantic Beach area, which is our zone. So we may not need the access. I think Huguenot would need it. The river, like you said, intercoastal. I think part of that Fulton area you were talking about, Buck Island, you can see some of that from Heritage River Road. But it would be nice. I know there's birds. We see birds over there. Matter of fact, Jeff just got 3 brown boobies on a sign right there across from Heritage River Road in Fulton, but the Mill Cove area.
Yeah, one of the river buoys.
Yeah, one of the river buoys. There's 3 brown boobies up there this past week. So
nice.
Yeah, so there's so you can see some of that from like I said, Heritage River Road. But
you need a scope. But boat would probably be better if you could get somebody over there just to troll past.
Yeah, the main overlap I could see with a boat party if they were inside the inlet by the jetties. And I know you guys go out to the beach and the jetty part of Mayport and boat at that jetty. So you would have to coordinate with somebody at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, because it seems to me like there would be, if there's a lot of gannet activity and stuff, it may be worthwhile. We always went north of the jetty because, we figured that, we didn't have all day. And that's where we spent most of our time north of the jetty when we were offshore, which we didn't spend a ton of time offshore either, because at the time we did the whole thing. But
Right.
you've got time to really work offshore, taking care not to go outside the count circle. But it seems to me that going south of the jetty would be worthwhile too, to see, because when you can't really see very well the birds that are going to be out on the jetty. There have been in the past great cormorants out there on the far end of the
Right.
jetty. You're
Yep.
just not going to see with a scope on either side of the river mouth.
I was going to say, even with a scope, that's a long way out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be
Especially if you've
great.
if you've got the heat shimmer coming off the water.
Yeah. Can't see very well. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Huguenot would be a huge
Huge.
plus to have the boat. Yeah.
Sorry, I apologize for that.
James,
Oh,
like
I'm
when
not-
you were, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
When you were doing the counts in the river going out the jetty, how did you coordinate with the adjacent section?
Really good question. And most of it was really, that was the big concern, was the Huguenot party, because of the amount of time that people spend covering Huguenot, because if there's a rare gull in the county, it's going to be at Huguenot, right? So we just drove toward it, and we sort of tried to stay out in the middle of the river, but actually toward the north part to avoid Mayport. But we would just keep a separate checklist, and we would look for the people on the land, and we would note what time it was, so that we could just, like, at the end of, and then as we went out past the jetty, we would just, like, if we saw an Iceland gull or a glaucus gull or something loafing south of the jetty by the riverside, we would make a note of it, take photographs and all that kind of stuff. And even if there were people on the shore, we would try to get pictures just in case we needed to substantiate, get better pictures than someone who might be on the land. But just to make sure that, it's their bird. So the river party wouldn't count that glaucus gull. Hypothetically, it would be with the Huguenot party. But
You would see if they got it too, yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about with coordination. You need to double check to make sure. I was there at 11 a.m. and we took about 30 minutes as we cruised past, and we got this glaucus gull. And they might say, well, we got a second winter glaucus gull at 4 p.m. Well, are they the same bird? Let's take a look at the pictures. Oh, those are different birds, different plumages, different cycles.
How do you keep from, like, say you're going along and you're going along past another section and you see all these cormorants, say, like, 100, 200 cormorants. How do you know that you're not counting the same cormorants that they're counting?
You don't, except to say that, I took notes when I was going past the Fort Caroline area, and I saw 200 corms, and if they might say, because they just were birding there the same day, oh no, we counted those. We saw those on a pier or whatever it was.
Okay, so it's not exact. It's just like, do your best to.
Yeah, it's do best. And generally speaking, I mean, unless it's a remarkable number or a remarkable species, the margin of error of the number of corms we're going to tally for the Christmas bird count, that's going to be a rounding error. So it's not, again, unless it's some magnificent number. If it's a frigate bird, that's one thing. If it's a peregrine falcon, that's one thing. If it's a red-footed booby like Tim got last year,
Same day,
it was just
27th last year.
Yeah. So those are the easy ones, the rare ones, but so that's why it's important just to sort of take notes, and that's why whoever in the party is responsible to sort of keep track. When I first started, I was the guy with the notebook. I'm sorry, with the clipboard and a pencil, and I was just writing everything down. And then I would sort of have another sheet behind it and make notes as to what time. And this is a best practice that I learned from the people who were doing it back, Dr. Lofton, and some, you may not know him, but Lofton and some of the early or not pioneers, but you get the point, luminaries of Duval County birding taught me those are the best practices to ensure you're not double counting things.
We still use clipboards, Jim.
Hey, you know,
Ray and I are clipboard fanatics.
yep.
Notes.
Yeah, and there are times when you use clipboards, and there are times when you just go straight into eBird.
You can take notes in
It's like
eBird.
you said, take notes, like the taking notes and things. Yeah.
Yeah. One other thing that I always tell people, and I'll be talking about when we do our presentation for the documenting rare birds, is another thing you can do is most people have smartphones, and most smartphones have a voice memos app. And you can just leave yourself a voice memo. Okay, it's 8:15 a.m. and we're offshore Fort Caroline, and we see 200 DCCOs, or whatever the case is, and just make sure you put the date, and not the date obviously, but the time, and where you are and what you're seeing, so that you're able to make a comparison. It's just an alternative to writing. If you're not going to write it down, or if it's wet and writing on paper isn't as convenient, you can whip out your voice app and make yourself a memo, or you can text it to yourself.
Okay. Excellent. Well, Sabrina, I don't think you were here when we started talking about who's going to go on what boats, or how we're going to see what boats wind up making it out. And I'm going to verify with my two coworkers that they're 100% on board. They already said they were. And then, so we should be able to just have two parties, and we'll have to split up who's covering what parts of the river. Maybe one party cover the western part, and one cover the eastern part. I don't know. What makes sense? Does that sound like it makes sense to you guys, William and
Yeah, I was just wondering if it would be conducive to have one more, like a Zoom meeting specifically just for a small group of people to talk about the boat, like exactly logistics. Like you mentioned before that the river plan was usually to go up into the jetty at some point through the north side of the river mouth.
Yeah.
And then crawl up and hit the jetties. And then I had ideas of doing is it Saw Pit, the Spoonbill boat ramp?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boat ramp.
The Saw
Yeah.
Pit Creek boat
Oh,
ramp.
yeah.
Taking
That part
that,
is
hitting
cool.
Nassau Sound, and then heading south until we hit the North Jetty. But those kind of discussions I feel could be really nice in a separate Zoom call if
Yeah, and because that's exactly the point where you would be needing to coordinate with anybody who was in Nassau Sound, because in order to get to Saw Pit, you kind of have to go into Nassau Sound in order to get.
Mhm.
And you want to make sure that you switch off your checklisting for a minute while you loop around there. And because if they're covering Nassau Sound and Clapboard Creek, which is on the far side of Big Talbot, then and in between that and Black Hammock, that's a consideration. So yeah. So I agree with you that kind of, in the weeds,
yeah.
in the Spartina, in the black, what did you say? Black Needle Rush.
Yeah.
That's where those conversations will be real valuable.
Yeah. And I think Sabrina, we did get the estimate on the price, and it is a little steep, but I mean, I definitely think me and Tim could do that price point, and anyone else, and then see.
How much is it?
Because I think it's, hold on. So it was 875 if we had 6 people, and 700 if we had 4. Is that it? Or no, Sabrina? Sorry, you're muted.
That's hours. So for 4 hours, and then that 800 is for the 6 hours.
Okay, so we could do 700 4 hours. So then, if we had 6 people, it could be almost $100. But do you want 6 people on a boat when usually it's 2 to 3? That would cause us maybe to lean towards your 2 boats with the
Yeah.
friends.
I mean, my opinion is that that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And, and so defraying the cost across 6 people makes sense with those numbers.
Numbers, yeah.
Yeah. But, one of the things that, I'll just sort of throw it out there that, I sort of consult with some other people on some other Christmas bird counts, and there's one that has a similar issue. And what they've done is they've prepared a grant proposal or a grant application for the Georgia Ornithological Society for that purpose. And I don't know if FOS has or Duval Audubon has a similar program where you can make an application for a grant. But that's another possibility, because I can't expect people to shell out $150 out of their own pockets.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to, rock on, but really rock on. But man, that's a big ask.
It's a big ask, yeah. And I'm not exactly, if Pete's, the 2 people sound really great.
Yeah.
Boats sound similar in size. So,
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
get more details and I'll follow up with you this weekend.
okay.
But they definitely said they would be available. And I'm gonna talk to them again.
So
Let you know.
they're going to be captaining boats, and we'll put birders on them, right? Is that what you're getting at?
Yes.
Yes. And it
Okay.
sounds like we've got Tim and William would be 2 great birders on one of the boats, and we just need somebody on the other.
Either that
Or
or they
split them up, or
and
split
then
them
put
up.
somebody with them.
Yeah. Yep.
Or let
That sounds-
Will work on those details, and
Yeah.
I agree. Our phone's about to die, I think. But if you're going to do this again, we'd like to be a part of the next one too, just to listen and keep abreast of any new decisions or
Okay.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
you
yeah,
got-
we'll be a part of that.
Did you guys get the invite for next Wednesday for the documentation?
For
Okay.
the documents, yes,
Cool.
we did. Yep, we'll be on. I'll make sure I charge my phone fully before we do the meeting.
And it might be too soon to suggest that we just sort of have a meeting stapled onto the tail end of that meeting, because that's only a week away.
Mhm.
Yeah, we may not
So-
have all the info. I get it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, we can do it. We're about. I mean, if you do another one, that's fine too. We're good.
Yeah, maybe in another couple weeks we'll do another boat meeting.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
good either way
Sales.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that I'll see if Patty can't join and bring along some of the people who, are actually part of the boats, who might be covering Nassau.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That's good.
Because I've got a lot of real tight detail about, covering the Nassau area, because Pat Leary used to do it for years and years and years. And so I've got all his maps and itinerary and all that kind of stuff.
So that'd be
Nice.
great.
That's a good
Great
birder right there.
information to get in
Yeah.
a new boat party's hands. I know Pat was pretty thorough, so it might be hard to recreate what he was doing.
Fair.
exactly.
Yeah, I'm not trying to put that up, on someone's shoulders, but I want people to have fun. I want people not to, have to not give their kids Christmas presents because they have to put gas in a boat or pay a charter. But whatever we can do to make this amenable for people to do this year in, year out. Because we did it every year for the longest time, and then it started to get a little sketchy when boats began to break and, so.
Yeah, and the numbers of birds that the boat parties would get really, really added to the count data as well. big
And the
time.
species counts, yep.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because, greater / lesser scaup is different from greater scaup.
Right.
Yeah, we just got one,
Yeah, I
Huguenot.
like a one
remember-
Huguenot little thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember one year where me and Bob were out in Nassau Sound, and we ran into Leary, and boy, he was not happy. What are you guys doing here? This is my area. And we're like, we're just going around. But we had seen greater scaup by the foot of the bridge that he hadn't seen. So, and we got photos. So we're like,
Kind of
Good
worth it.
deal.
that sort of smoothed it over a little bit.
There you go. Well, we've got to run. Like I said, my phone's going to die any second. But yep. So we'll talk to y'all next week then with the other meeting.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys. Bye.
So I think, is there any other things that we need to wrap up with?
Just let it die out.
Not really. Any questions, Sabrina or Will?
No, I just think we gotta, and by we I mean maybe me and Sabrina, just stay on top of, or us three just communicating about the boats and getting it as early as is manageable, like figured out.
Sure.
Because
I'll
time
get
goes by.
back in touch with you this weekend and we can talk about it preliminarily. I can put you in touch with the boat captains to see who wants to go in what boat.
Mhm.
You said you had multiple people besides yourself and Tim that were interested, or more people than just you and Tim?
Yeah, I think I had, Sabrina, Tim, and then I had uh two other kind of newcomers, or three, including Mo, who's like, I think he's 16 years old, and he's by far and away a very experienced high level birder.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's get him involved. Was he involved in the count last year?
No, he's never done a count.
Okay. Perfect.
Get him.
I
Start
probably
with-
won't be able to go on the boat, but so we need to fill it up.
Okay.
What were you gonna say, James?
Oh, I was going to say that's just perfect. That aligns perfectly with the mission to get new people into and give them a great experience with a Christmas bird count. That's what happened to me, which is why I'm an old guy and I still just love it. Every year I just look forward to doing as many as I can, and it wouldn't have happened if I didn't have great experiences when I was young.
So James, just a refresh for Will and Sabrina. You are kind of our coordinator from afar, and sometimes you make it down here for the count, and sometimes you don't. So what's your plan this year?
So I'm going to try to be down there. And my daughters live there, and so it's certainly, and my family are all in Tampa. I'm up in Taylorsville, Kentucky, which is in between Frankfurt and Louisville, and but I've lived in Duval most of my life. Lived in St. John's for some of it, McAllen, Texas for some of it, for the last decade or so up here. So I definitely have ties, as you could tell when I was talking about the map. I kind of know. I've worked the river for a long time, so. But my plan is to be down there, and so the times that I can't be down, I wasn't compiler, so, and I'm the compiler for the Louisville Christmas bird count. I'm going to be compiler for another one up here because one of our compilers is getting married and so needs to take the year off. So I'm going to be doing hers. And I'm also the regional editor for the Christmas bird counts in Kentucky. So I care for all 42 of the ones we have here in the state, and I corral the squirrels and do the full audit at the end to make sure I do what Bill Prantey and Bruce Anderson do for Florida, for the Kentucky ones. And it's a thankless kind of thing. So that's why when I ask people for details, that's why recording the rare bird thing is an important meeting next week. Not for people who are strong birders who understand that when you're documenting rare birds, you got to describe the bird, which seems pretty obvious, but for people who, might be newer birders, that may not be intuitive. And so we're going to work through some of those things. And but I know I'm on the receiving end because I tell people don't submit rare birds on the CBC data if you don't have them documented. And every year I've got to decline or remove a half dozen birds. Oh, it was seen by one of the best birders in the state. Well, my tagline is, if it was Jesus, Buddha, Allah, Jehovah, Roger Torrey Peterson, or whomever, Ken Kaufman, I would still have them, David Sibley, they would still have to submit details. And if they don't, I can't put my name to it. So anyway.
All right. Well, are you interested in doing a boat, being on one of the boats, or are you doing a specific territory or section?
Yeah, I've been doing spoonbill for Laura.
Okay, so you're teaming up with Laura Johansson's little Talbot, big Talbot.
Yep.
Section. Okay.
That's what I've been doing. And they've, and actually Tim did, we had some, I mean, literally 9 o'clock on CBC day.
He was a beast.
Yeah. I had 2 people back out on me, and Tim covered the entirety of Little Talbot on his foots.
Yeah.
Dang. This was last year. I'm not sure how I didn't know that.
Well, I mean, Tim's a modest guy. He didn't just go boasting, I guess.
No, he did not. But he wanted to take a break from birding for a little bit after that. He was exhausted.
Yeah. I mean, and again, Laura had to back out because of a death in the family. So I took the section. Yeah. And it was me and Tim and one other guy who was from Maryland, who's down for the holidays. I hope he comes back because he was pretty good. He covered some of the spots. We divided it up into 3. Anyway, so we'll him, but
in the past, sorry, I did it with Laura one time in the past, and she had the state parks UTV vehicle.
Yeah, and so she's got a team of people. There's 3 or 4 people that usually do that area, and they're on the ATVs for Little Talbot. And then I do some of the other things. I split the trails and Alamacani, and with the other guy, with can't remember what his name is. I'm sorry to say, but we sort of.
Oh, Bill George.
No. This was the guy from Maryland. I'm talking about the.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. No, I said Alamacani. I didn't mean Alamacani. Alamacani is on the other side. We were on the opposite side. That little pond that always has a ruddy duck in it in winter.
Mm-hmm.
That's the shoreline that I'm talking about. There's a little park on the edge where you look across to Alamacani.
Yeah.
And again, that's another conversation that even land parties have. We had to make sure that we weren't double counting stuff that was out on the, in low tide in the middle, in between. So.
All right, you guys. Well, I think we're definitely over an hour now, so better think about wrapping this up.
Yeah. I can talk. Can you tell?
I can talk about birds all day too, so I'm with you there.
That's why we love you, James. You're a good communicator.
Hopefully it's effective. That's my point. That's what I'm trying to do. So I definitely have passion for the CBC and want it to be successful, and I want everybody to have a good time, but I also want it to be done correctly. I want everyone to calculate their effort hours and their effort miles by transportation mode accurately, and all that kind of stuff. Like, here's another example. When you're at the boat launch, you're in somebody's section. If you're in the boat launch, are you counting the birds at the boat launch, or is the party who covers that area going to be counting the boat launch? So got to iron those details out.
Got to be thinking and coordinating and making sure that we get it as accurate as possible.
Yep. But thank you all very much for coming. Really appreciate it. And, I look forward to the subsequent meetings. I'll make sure, like I said, we try to get everybody who's actually be doing the, into the Spartina, into the weeds, and get some details hammered out.
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you,
Thanks.
James. Great job.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Pete, for organizing.
You're welcome.
Good
Good night.
Thank you.
All right. Night.